and welcome. We are in 303 and we turn now back to our study of the work of Mr. Conrad, and more particularly the lesson 21. Let's go ahead now and pause for a moment and take a look at the title of this one. It's a little bit profane. Mr. Conrad, every once in a while, gets a little bit profane in the Unstoppable volume. The masses are the asses is probably not the most crystal or pristine kind of saying. We're going to hear in this story that it comes actually from his father. Really quickly on your journals, just jot down really quickly, what does that term mean to you before we even talk about it? What does that term mean to you? The masses are the asses. Obviously, again, it's a bit profane, but nonetheless, the masses here probably means what? All the people, the large group. Sometimes we call that the large group that would create peer pressure or whatever, right? And then, of course, how this thing plays out, we're going to hear in this story. Now, let's also jot down in our journals really quickly that sometimes, out of a person's biography or life, he or she likes to talk about an event. We call this a narrative essay. Write that down. A biographic, narrative, reflective essay. And really what we'll have here is one of these reflective essays where Mr. Conrad is going to reflect back on a time in his life when he was young, and he's going to basically tell a little anecdote that's kind of funny and goofy, okay? But it's going to set up this observation that his father will make about the masses, all right? Let's go ahead and read it together, page 65, out of the Unstoppable volume. They were the bullies of the school bus. Now they were bullying us. We're going to raid your house tonight, the Schwartz brothers threatened. Tonight was Halloween night. Raiding houses usually consisted of soaping windows, throwing cattle corn, spreading toilet paper, but with the Schwartz's boys, Lord only knows what else they do. These were the same two guys who were thrown off the school bus one day for jacking around and had to walk miles to get home. They both cussed at the poor old driver as they were getting the boot. I didn't care for either of them. We told Dad of the pending attack the Schwartz brothers were planning just as soon as we got off the bus. We also told him that the best defense would be a good offense. We wanted to attack first. Kevin and I showed Dad the sack of corn we had hand-peeled, the bars of soap we'd gathered. We were ready, totally prepared. All we needed was the car. I was old enough to drive, and we'd be careful, I promised Dad. Could we borrow the car keys, I asked Dad. He refused. Never once during our entire childhood did my brother and I ever get a chance to go raiding. We don't ever get to do what all the other kids are doing, I cried. Because, Dad says, the masses are the asses, Dad fired back. It was one of his favorite sayings. He'd repeat it whenever we wanted to do something that all the other kids were doing, especially if he disagreed with it. Forlorn and dejected, my brother and I devised Plan B. Together we reasoned and rationalized that if we couldn't raid other people's houses, we would raid our own house. We would teach Dad a lesson, too. It was a perfect plan. We'd already laid the groundwork about the Schwartz's brothers so we could blame it all on them. Our sister Jody would have to clean up the mess, an added bonus. Perfect. After dinner, we discreetly stashed our raiding supplies upstairs in Kevin's bedroom. His room was directly above the living room, and Mom and Dad would be watching TV in there when we attacked. Just before we went to bed, we put a bug in Dad's ear. Watch out for the Schwartz brothers. Who knows what they'll do tonight? Good night, we said, as we trudged upstairs. We slammed our doors loud enough so George and Dolores could hear we were in our separate bedrooms. After 15 minutes or so, I could faintly hear the sound of the TV come on in the living room. Mom and Dad were taking their places for the night. It was time for us to take our places too. The hinges creaked as I slowly opened the door and tiptoed over to Kevin's room. Did they hear you? Kevin asked. No way, the TV's too loud. I was trying not to laugh. This was already fun and about to become hilarious. Together, we shimmied open Kevin's bedroom windows. Trying hard not to laugh out loud, we reached into the sack of shelled corn with both hands. Some of the kernels slipped through our fingers to the floor as we leaned out the window. For sure, we would need to pick up that evidence before morning. On the count of 3, I whispered to Kevin. We were both on the verge of busting up with laughter. 1, 2, 3, we pelted the windows with corn. Although it does no damage to the windows, it scares the heck out of anybody sitting nearby. We heard Mom gasp. George got up. We knew exactly what he'd do. He had a routine we'd seen 100 times before. First, he turns on the floodlights outside. On came the lights as I tiptoed back to bed. Next, the dogs would start barking. Barking dogs, right on cue. I thought as I pulled the covers up over my head. Then Dad would run to the gun cabinet, load his shotgun, and go outside. We lived on a small farm in a rural part of Pennsylvania. The nearest house was over a quarter of a mile away. To call the police would be a waste of time. I never saw a cop drive by the farm in all the years I lived there. Besides, we didn't need cops. We had George. He thought he was the law, at least the law of Lincoln County, the little hamlet in which we lived. Dad's law was shoot first, ask questions later, especially when it came to his property that he worked so hard to attain. I remember some nights when the dogs started barking, Dad would fire a few warning shots into the air. It was his way of letting would-be intruders know he was the law around these parts. I don't know if it actually scared anyone, but it sure made Dad feel good. Perhaps it was all those John Wayne movies. Afterward, he'd strut into the house and declare the property free of all perpetrators. I heard the door close. Dad was back in the house. Immediately, he raced up the stairs to my bedroom. Craig, the Schwartz brothers hit the house, he panted. Faking like I was asleep and trying not to smile, I rolled over in a slumber and said, I told you. When Dad got back downstairs, I could hear my brother laughing so hard, I was scared my folks would hear him. Shut up, I whispered across the hall. This was just the beginning. Next was round 2. After Dad settled down, I snuck back over to my brother's room. We couldn't even look at each other for fear of cracking up. Simultaneously, we reached into the sack again. With even more corn spilling to the floor, we fired a second round. We fired a third and a fourth round too. What the heck? We were having too much fun to stop now. Again, Mom screamed. Dad got up and turned on the lights. I could tell he was running. So was I, on my tiptoes. I dove under my covers. The dogs were going crazy. Then suddenly, boom, boom. Dad fired 2 shots. I almost wet the bed. My brother was laughing so loud I thought Dad would hear him for sure, and he was outside the house. I was in pain trying to hold it all in. I was having trouble breathing, trying to catch my breath. When Dad got back in house, I could hear him running up the stairs to my room. I panicked. What do I do now? I thought as Dad turned on my light. I buried my face so deep in my pillow that I couldn't breathe. Dad shook me violently to wake me. Craig, the Schwartz brothers are hiding outside. They hit us again, the lawman said in a panic. I couldn't even turn around. If I did, Dad would have seen the tears streaming down my face. I stayed buried. Only after he left to go into Kevin's room could I get some air. I remember praying that Kevin wouldn't blow our cover. He didn't. Dad gave up and surrendered back to the living room. Later, my brother and I rendezvoused in the upstairs bathroom. It was time for the coup de grace. We opened up the bathroom window and crawled out onto the porch roof. We climbed down the tree that grew next to the porch like a couple of chimpanzees. We were outside ready to do some monkeying around. Finally, we could laugh out loud, and we did. The thought of us outside the house and Mom and Dad inside the house just added to the hysterics. We nodded to each other as we removed the bars of soap from our pockets. The pride we felt in having successfully raided our own house would soon be complete. Knowing it was Jody's job to clean the windows, we humored ourselves with that image of our sister cleaning all the ones we were soaping. We even soaped the car windows. I started climbing the tree to get back into the house when Kevin decided to soap the living room windows. No, don't be an idiot. Mom and Dad are sitting right there, I said. My brother never listened to me before, and he didn't listen to me now either. I'll be quiet, he said reassuringly as he walked over to soap the living room windows. I was just about on the porch roof when I saw my brother come flying around the house. Run, run! I banged the soap against the window, he yelled. You idiot, I said as I made my way to the bathroom window. I was halfway in the window when the front door burst open. There he was, the law of Lincoln, with his 12-gauge shotgun. In the dimly lit moonlight, Dad observes one Schwartz brother climbing the tree and the other Schwartz brother climbing through the window into his house. Now's not the time for questions, it's time for shooting. Freeze or I'll shoot, Dad yelled as he shouldered his shotgun. I bumped my head hard on the bathroom window as I tried to raise my arms like someone under arrest. Don't shoot, Dad, it's us, I pleaded. Craig, Kevin, is that you? Dad said while shaking his head as if to remove the cobwebs. Yes, don't shoot, I said, standing up slowly with my arms raised high above my head. It wasn't until the next day that we all got a good laugh out of the whole thing. However, my sister Jody got the best laugh of all. She slept through the whole ordeal, and she laughed the entire time while she sat there on the porch watching Kevin and I clean windows. Even though my dad's name is George, that wouldn't be the last time a guy named George would point a loaded gun at me. The next time it would be Psycho George. Let's just pause for a moment and jot down a couple of things here in your journals about this reading. Notice, first of all, let's just note, this is kind of a fun word picture, a reflective essay, as we said. Tells a fun kind of story, right? Of course, don't follow what everybody else does, is the point behind the masses are the asses, right? Don't give in to peer pressure. We'll come back to this idea. It's obviously a very unstoppable idea. But this is an interesting question. What was a time that you pulled a pretty good gag yourself? That is to say, you kind of got away with something, and then what's a time when you tried to pull a good gag and you thought you were going to get away with it, and then it didn't go so well in the end and you kind of got busted for it? Oftentimes, reflective biographies like this one, these little episodes, can help us to remember a time in our own youth when maybe we had a bit of fun as well. And that's basically what this chapter is, a bit of fun. Thank you. Chapter 21 of Unstoppable.